Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for attending the session today, and please do fill out the survey responses. We're going to put that QR code up again at the end of the session if you missed it the first time around. So today we are here to talk about Zerto and what we are primarily focused on in 2025 when it comes to the Zerto solutions and roadmap. First, in the off chance any of you have never been to a technology conference before, this is going to have some forward-looking statements, and everything that's in there is potentially subject to change, et cetera, et cetera. So please keep that in mind as you take notes and such from the session. So I am joined today by one of my colleagues, Sherrick, who I'm going to introduce here in a little bit, who is going to talk in the second half of this session about what Zerto is doing specifically around the cyber threats that are emerging in the world of data protection today. Data protection is foundationally changing. The definition of disasters has really shifted from floods and earthquakes, not that those don't still exist, but it's much, much more common to have cyber threats as the reason that you need to do some sort of a recovery. So we're going to talk about some innovations there in the second half. I'm going to talk a little bit about the acquisition by Broadcom of VMware and what we're seeing in the market and how we're adapting to some of the ripples that it's caused throughout the industry and in our customer base. So starting again with the VMware acquisition. We have had a remarkable 2-decade run with essentially an incumbent when it comes to on-premise virtualization. We were able to develop products with the assumption that every customer we were going into had some VMware, probably mostly or if not only VMware in the environment, right? So at HPE, for example, we have worked for a long time on our Private Cloud Business Edition solution, presumes the existence of VMware. Zerto, for the last 14 years, presumes the existence of VMware. Our Cloud Physics solution, if any of you have been exposed to that through your partners, assumes the presence of VMware, and many other things around the industry and around the rest of HPE all had the same thing. Well, that is starting to change, and it's starting to change somewhat rapidly. We're going from this world where there obviously, and this slide focuses exclusively on on-premise hypervisors, but it's perfectly valid to put the clouds up here, the public clouds up here as well. These, what we see today, or what we saw up through January of 2024, was VMware was the incumbent, and there were pockets of other hypervisors out there, some KVM, some Microsoft flavors, people were adapting to containers, et cetera, but still, it was virtually ubiquitous to see VMware in every customer. Now what we're seeing is a migration, a very glacial, it's not going to happen quickly, but a migration away from VMware. For most of our customers, that's a 2 to 3 year journey that they are just starting now. But it is happening, and a lot of the questions I get asked are what is Zerto planning to do, because I like Zerto, and I'd like to be able to use it if I get off of VMware. About 20% of the customers I talk to are planning to stay with VMware. They're just, for whatever reason, they don't have any inclination to get off that platform. So about 20% are doing that. The other 80% are in some stage of evaluation, right? And so some of those guys may be running on Nutanix DHCI solutions, and that comes with a hypervisor, so maybe there's some experimentation there. Other folks might have been running OpenStack on top of VMware, and they're trying to figure out if they can just pull VMware out and run on bare metal. And then there's the Microsoft technologies, et cetera, that are out there. So there's really a lot of opportunity and options in the market today. If you went to the keynote, you heard Antonio speak significantly about our VM Essentials solution, which we are working on. I'm not going to go into detail on that today, but the idea is to have a solution by mid-year, our mid-fiscal year, that is a full stack with a PCBE solution with VM Essentials as the primary hypervisor and with Zerto in place to be the data protection solution that comes all bundled into one nice enterprise-supported solution that people can look at to start to think about migrations. The other thing that's happening in this picture is customers are also trying to figure out how they're going to go from one hypervisor to another. Replatforming is not easy, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how Zerto can help with that as well. Specifically diving into, just as an example, the data protection realm that is part of the VMware solutions. This is happening across their stack, which is part of the reason why there's a little bit of a bite when it comes to the budget. They're taking what used to be a la carte solutions, and these are the three sort of primary data protection solutions that you could buy from VMware, and they're basically migrating them to one bundle where you have to buy all of it. So this is just an example of what we're seeing, but it spans the entire VMware portfolio. Okay, so this slide I'll pause on for a second because I mentioned a bunch of solutions at HPE that have grown up in an era where VMware was considered the de facto incumbent. The truth is Zerto is in better place than most because we not only have solutions, if you look at the bottom left where it says replication on premises, let's assume that little box on the left, that little enterprise icon, is a VMware cluster, right? So a customer might have a VMware cluster. Then if you look at the bottom right, there's another, that might be a Hyper-V cluster. And when you go up to the public cloud, one of them might be AWS and one of them might be Azure. And what Zerto, by the way, supports with CDP, data protection, disaster recovery across all of those different platforms. But what becomes interesting when we think about the migration use case is the interoperability that we provide between these platforms. So it's very common for our customers today to have their primary enterprise site be a VMware farm, but their disaster recovery site's at AWS or Azure. And when we put it at AWS or Azure, we're actually replatforming it such that it is a native instance on AWS or Azure. Same between if we go from VMware to Hyper-V or even back from the cloud down, however the customer wants to configure it, we've got this interoperability matrix that gives us a lot of flexibility. It also gives us a lot of experience having gone through what it takes to certify our solution on new platforms and enable that interoperability. So what do we have sort of specifically to talk about with each of the platforms I just described? I'm just going to more or less just go through this list to give you some highlights. So we are able in the world of AWS to go from VMware to AWS and from AWS back to VMware with native EC2 instances and native VMware VMs, including cross-region and cross-replication, across availability zones. And everything can be made immutable when it's up at AWS by using the S3 object lock. With Microsoft, similarly, VMware to Hyper-V is available and Azure, and back, including cross-region and in-region DR. VMware, I'm not going to go into that. I think probably most of you know that if you have experience with it. But I will point out one thing, which is that if you're at all concerned as a Zerto user that you might be not able to use Zerto as the next versions of VMware come out, which do not allow for us to implement our what we call the Z driver, the replication technology that we put on the kernel, because the kernel will be locked down in those. We now have support for VIO, which is a standard for I/O capture that will be supported by VMware, so you can continue to use it seamlessly if you have to migrate further. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the disaster recovery and that matrix. So let's think about this in the context of KVM. Which is where we're headed first. I mentioned earlier that the VM Essentials solution is designed in a way to have basically baked in Zerto data protection ready when we get to the real rollout, which will be in the middle of the year. The first thing we're working on right now is a VMware to VM Essentials migration technology. That's typically what we do and how we do it first in the engineering shop. First thing we do is say, all right, if somebody's got a VMware shop and they want to have a DR site on a different platform, what does that take? And that gives us familiarity with the new platform, right? And immediately the fast follow after that's done is new platform to new platform or new platform back and so on and so forth. Eventually VM Essentials will be a complete part of that matrix I showed earlier. And you'll be able to take a VM Essentials environment, use Zerto to have it be protected in AWS, to have it migrate to Azure, and so on and so forth. So we are working on that. So why is Zerto a good solution for migration? Effectively because migration is simply DR for Zerto without a failover, right? Everything you need to do to migrate, intercepting each I/O, transferring it to a secondary site, creating a copy over there with the Zerto journal embedded, everything about that entire solution is what we do for DR, except DR enables you to spin up some VMs on the other side if you have a disaster of some sort. Replication, you're just moving them over and shutting off the primary. So zero data loss. We still have the lowest RPO in the market, and I'll show you a little glory slide on what that looks like in a second, because of our ability to take I/O by I/O and transfer it to the secondary site. Downtime is negligible, whereas usually having to cut over to a new site, it traditionally would take days. Now it still takes multiple hours. With Zerto, you literally just pause the replication at a point in time. In about 10 seconds, the secondary site will be up to date. Cut this one off, turn that one on. Very minimal downtime for a migration event. Easy pre-migration testing. Obviously, one of the key features that's embedded in Zerto natively is testing. You have to be able to test your DR all the time as part of whatever runbooks you have. Same testing is available in a migration use case. Hybrid and multi-cloud agility. I think I've mentioned a lot about that. Most of the customers we have today have some workloads here and some workloads up in the public cloud. The ability to move those back and forth is becoming increasingly necessary. And then, of course, we have different ways to license between a migration use case and a disaster recovery use case. So this is the glory slide I was telling you about. So what I hear all the time is people talking about their inability to get into compliance with whatever regional regulations are in place. So you need to have a certain high availability for cyber events. You have to have a certain high availability in RPO and RTO, et cetera. And oftentimes, customers who are working with traditional backup applications are falling short of meeting those regulatory goals. But with HPE's Zerto solution and a CDP solution that's been out for 14 years and is still the best in the market, proven reliability at extremely large scale. Some of our service providers have got hundreds of thousands of VMs. And a very hardened, performant platform. Some big names here with a large number of VMs have gotten some incredibly impressive RPOs through their testing. So you see United up there at 8 seconds. You see a top unnamed software company at 7 seconds. Jack Henry, 6 seconds. Fortune 10 customer, 9 seconds. This is really actually very commonplace for us to get to a point where customers have meet and then exceed their regulatory requirements. So I think I've already discussed this. It's new in a sense that it's now real. We talked about this at Discover in Vegas at the end of June, but now I've got hands on keyboards writing code, and we're working with the newly acquired Morpheus team, through which we acquired the VM Essentials core technology, to actually design and scale up for this solution. What I hear frequently from customers is that what they're looking for is largely, I hear mostly KVM. There's some who are doing a flight to safety with Microsoft. You know Broadcom's not going to acquire Microsoft. So some people are going that direction. But most people who are familiar and accustomed to VMware tend to be moving more toward a KVM-based solution. So they're looking for a KVM solution. They're looking for a unified control plane that they can use across their organization, and Morpheus brings that for us. And they're looking for integrated data protection, and that's what Zerto is going to bring. So a full certified hardware stack of PCBE, and PC for AI is a version of PCBE, so it'll be there as well, with the orchestration control plane and the data protection baked right in. That's what we're going to be bringing to market as a response to what Broadcom's done with the VMware acquisition. And I'll be around for questions if anybody has them at the end. So now I'm going to invite Sharik, who is going to introduce and discuss our Cyber Resiliency Vault, a solution I'm very excited about. And then he has a special guest who's going to come up for an interview at the end. And we'll all be here at the end of the session for questions. Thank you very much. There you go, buddy. Take care.
Well, thank you, Chris. Hello, everyone. My name is Sharik Akil. I'm a global field CTO with Zerto and HPE. And today, I'll be talking to you about the cyber threats. You know how big of a problem cyber threats are? How big of a problem it is for the economy? So based on a survey, it is projected to cost the loss of $10.5 trillion to the global economy this year. If you have to put it in context, that's like $10.5 trillion is like the third largest economy in the world after US and China. That big of a threat it is. And these cyber attackers are not coming slow. They are now making use of AI to evade the defenses, the security, the protection that you have got in your environment. They are always finding a way. What we have seen in the past, that what they used to do, they used to gain access to your network first. And from there on, they'll start the scan of your network to identify all of your connected sites, all of your workloads, what kind of protection you have in place, what security software you are using, and based on that, they will start attacking those components. But what we have seen them doing now is like, as soon as they complete the scan, the AI engine they are using will provide them with the recommendation automatically that this customer is using certain software and you can evade this defense by using certain technique. They are using certain codes of operating system with these vulnerabilities that are not patched. So they are more lethal now. And that's why it's a big problem. And we actually, Market did a survey. Market did a survey and asked a simple question. That this is a question that was posed to the chief executive officers of different companies. Like, what their IT function should do more of. And the number one answer was, you can see on the screen, improve security and privacy. Because that's a biggest threat. Then they conducted the same survey or asked the similar questions to the CIOs. That what is the number one thing that you want to improve more on or you want to invest more on? And the first answer, or number one answer, cyber and information security. So this is on the top of the mind of the board, the CEOs, the CIOs. This is the biggest problem they are trying to solve. But then Zerto with IDC, we went to the market and we conducted another survey to do a reality check. The results are mixed. Although this is number one thing on the mind of our CIOs and CEOs, but what we discovered is like there are 64% of the organizations have got different recovery plans. So there is not a proper cyber recovery or resilience plan in place for more than 64% of the organizations. That's problem number one. You can see the top two reasons we found out that the organizations will pay the ransom if they are attacked by a cyber attacker. Number one, they thought they have a huge data loss that they cannot afford. The second thing, they thought it will take long time to recover the data. Those were the two problems. And more than 65% of the organizations, this is based on the real attacks data, the real customers who face the cyber attacks. So we talked to those customers, and like more than 65% of the organizations took more than 1 month to recover their environment. Why more than 1 month? Why huge data loss? If it is on top of mind of each and every CEO and CIO, are they not taking any action? The answer is no. No, yes, they are taking actions. They are taking actions, and they do have deployed some kind of protection in place to be able to recover from a cyber attack. And if you look at the market, there are many solutions in the market today that provides you with cyber recovery. But you will notice one thing that is common in all these solutions. They are based off of backup software. That's the common theme. Now here's a reminder. As customers, have you ever relied on backup software to provide you with disaster recovery? In most cases, no. You relied on something like storage replication. You relied on something like Zerto to provide you with disaster recovery. Because backups are not designed to provide you with mass data recovery. And cyber recovery is a mass data recovery event where you have to recover terabytes of data. So it takes long time. So we saw that as a gap in the market, that backups are not designed to provide you with mass data recovery. So we have to come up with a solution that can provide you with mass data recovery, reduce your data loss window, and you should be able to test and recover that environment within hours instead of weeks or months. So for that, to meet that objective, we came up with this solution where we combined Zerto, which is the data protection or data mover, along with HPE storage to come up with 3 pillars of the solution. Number 1 is replicate and detect. So protect the environment, you have to create a copy of the data. And as Chris was talking about Zerto, Zerto was designed to provide you with continuous data protection. That means any point in time recovery with the RPO of 3 to 5 seconds. And the RTO means the recovery time of minutes. And now we are talking hundreds of terabytes of data within minutes. So this is what Zerto used to do. What we did from the cyber perspective, now we have included inline encryption detection as part of our replication operation. So Zerto is always on, always replicating the data to the target site. What we did with the cyber now is we are also performing analysis of that packet as we are replicating that to the remote site to look for the traces of encryption in it. So if there is a cyber attacker who will start encryption in your environment, as he will start that, within 3 to 5 seconds, we will start identifying those encryption traces and let you know that there is a problem. So the earliest detection we can do, which is very different from the backups, because in backups, you perform backups every 24 hours. That's the only time you can scan the data, while we are doing it inline within 3 to 5 seconds. Pillar number 1, continuously replicating the data, also performing deep analysis of that data to see if it is clean or not so clean. Then comes the second pillar, which is isolate and lock. Now we have received the data, we know the health of the data, that this is clean copy or encrypted copy, we know the health of the data. What we do at this point, we make the data immutable, and then we create an air-gapped copy of the data, which is totally isolated and off your network. And I'll walk you through the example of it. Then comes the third pillar, which is the most important pillar, as I think, is the ability to test and recover whatever you are protecting. Why you are protecting the data? Because in case you are hit, you need to recover and recover quickly. So you need to have this capability available in your environment so that you can test it regularly, document it, prove it for regulatory reasons, to meet the compliance requirements. So test and recover is the third and the most important pillar. So we brought in a clean room into this environment. So if we talk about how we have been able to achieve the quickest, shortest RPO and quickest RTO, because we combined Zerto with HPE storage, which is all NVMe production grade, designed to provide you with the storage of your production for your production workloads. Now, this is an example how this will look like in your environment. So on the left side, you see the production environment. This is a production example where you have virtual machines running. You have any storage that is storing the data. It does not have to be HPE, any storage you are using, whatever your standard is. As you deploy the Zerto Cyber Resilience Vault appliance, we will deploy this appliance, and this appliance have got 2 zones in it. The first one is on the screen in the middle, which is landing zone. Landing zone is basically the receiver of the data. This landing zone is running its own storage, its own compute. You will identify the workloads that you want to protect, the critical workloads from your production. Zerto will start replicating those workloads. This replication is all encrypted. And as we are replicating these data blocks, we are performing encryption detection on those data blocks. So we know the health of the data as we are writing it in the landing zone. At this point, we have received the data that is sitting on the MP storage in the landing zone. But what I said in the beginning of the presentation, what these cyber attackers do, first thing they do, they run a network scan as soon as they gain access to your environment. So anything that is connected to the network will be exposed. So our point of view here is anything that is exposed or connected to the network, even for 5 minutes, can be and will be compromised. So the landing zone is there. Landing zone is visible on the network. It can be compromised. So we move to the zero trust architecture where we said, okay, anything that we are providing, including Zerto, can be compromised. To overcome that problem, we brought in the vault zone, which is the third pillar in this diagram. This vault zone is totally isolated from the landing zone and production, totally air-gapped. You see, it has got its own network in it, which is Aruba networking on top, but it is all internal to the vault zone. This network is never connected nor to the landing zone or to the production at any point. Physically air-gapped. No, but we have to move the data in because we have received the data in the landing zone. We know the health of the data. Now we have to create an air-gapped copy. So we took a different approach here because Alletra MP, that is the storage, which is very secure, it has got a specific replication protocol, RCIP or RCFC. So these are the replication ports sitting on the storage unit that are designed for replication only. When I say replication only, even if you physically connect to those ports, there is no management access. So you don't have the control plane to manage the storage on those ports. So what we did, we took that replication port of the storage unit sitting in the landing zone, and we connected it to the replication port of the storage sitting in the vault zone. Direct connect, point to point, totally off network. Now this connection is totally off network. And on top of that, what we are doing is this wire is connected physically, but this network fabric is not powered on all the time. It is disabled by default. We enable it from inside the vault every few hours. So in this example, say every 4 hours, we will enable this link from inside the vault. This vault cannot be operated from outside. We'll enable this link, we'll perform the replication, bring the data in, and disable that link again. Now we have received the data inside the vault. We'll take the snapshot, make it immutable, apply the retention log in compliance mode, and you have got the data copy. But one thing that you will notice, we never performed any backup. We never converted the original VMs into any other format than the native VMDKs. So what you have in the vault is the data ready to be powered on. There is no restore that is required. In case you are hit, and I'll walk you through the steps, but in case you are hit, all you have to do, select the copy you want to recover and say power on. That's it. That's how simple it is. If we talk about restore speeds, let me just do a quick comparison to the backups. Average restore speed from the backups is like 750 gigs an hour to a terabyte an hour. If you have to restore 300 terabytes of data using that speed from the backup appliance, we are easily talking 16 plus days. Similar amount of data, with this architecture, we can recover in a couple of hours, be it 300 terabytes or a petabyte. So now if we just talk about, let me quickly walk you through a couple of scenarios here. In case you are hit, your production is compromised, the first line of recovery is your landing zone. Landing zone is typical Zerto recovery. If landing zone is not compromised, all you have to do is go to Zerto, select the checkpoint for the virtual machine or the virtual protection group that you have got. Select that, select the point in time you want to recover from, and simply click power on. Within minutes, those workloads will be powered on, and from there on, wherever. If you want to perform a cleansing operation, you can do that. If you want to move it to production, Zerto can move it back to production, or you can serve it directly to your customers. This is scenario number one. What's the worst case scenario? Zero trust. We said Zerto might be compromised at one point. The storage can be. Anything can be compromised that is connected on the network. If that is the scenario, only then you will go to the vault zone. And how you will access the vault zone? Even with the administrative privileges you have in your data center, you cannot remotely access it. There is no access path or management path going into the zone. So you have to physically access the vault zone, go there. At this point, you have to take 3 manual steps. Select the checkpoint or the snapshot that is sitting on the storage. Step number 1, clone it and mount it to the hardware, ESX hardware sitting in the vault. Step number 1. Step number 2, as it is mounted, step number 2, power on Zerto Virtual Manager and vCenter. And within 30 to 45 minutes, that's the time it takes for vCenter to boot up and bring all the services online. You will be able to power on all of the workloads or the workloads that you want to recover inside the vault. These are the 3 simplest steps to recover your data from a cyber attack. This is what we have already talked about, that Zerto Cyber Resilience Vault is based off of HP Alletra Storage, MP, which is all NVMe, all flash storage, designed for performance. So this is what we are doing. We are not using the storage that is designed for protection of your data. It is designed for performance and designed from the standpoint of giving you the high IOPS so that you can run your operations or resume your operations from. If we have to compare the solution, now this is based on the real world examples. This is the example of 300 terabytes. If we just talk about, if we compare this product to the leading backup-based cyber recovery vaults, last on good copy, the RPO, is approximately 2 days with a typical data protection software. We brought it down to 4 hours or less. RPO is 87% reduction. Now, if we talk about RTO, I just gave you an example of 300 terabytes. It will take more than 16 plus days, plus you have to perform cleansing operations. So we are easily talking 20 plus days to recover 300 terabytes of data. We can recover double the amount of that 300 terabytes within 2 hours. That's 99% reduction in RTO. And this is the only solution in the market right now that provides you with journal-based cyber recovery. That means any point in time recovery. So it's fast and secure, full stack solution, and we preferred security over convenience. There is no centralized control plane. There is no remote management plane that is available. Because if you can access that management plane, a cyber attacker can also. So we moved away from convenience to more of a secure solution. But this is our point of view. This is what we have done. This is what our solution is. But I think what is best here is we have talked about our solution. Now let's hear from a customer to talk about what they have achieved in their environment, what they are working on. So at this point, I would like to, it's my pleasure to welcome Paul Walsh from Nationwide. Please come on stage so that we can welcome. Thank you for your time, Paul.
Good to be here.
So can you tell us a little bit about Nationwide and your role at Nationwide?
Yes, so we're a financial services organisation in the UK. We are not a bank, so we're not on the stock market. We are owned by our customers and members. In other countries, I think you use the terms credit unions or cooperatives. So I think that gives us a unique position in the UK financial services market to both support our customers and really focus on customer service, but it also gives us the ability to innovate. To give you some kind of idea of our scale, so we've recently acquired another organisation. Now we service about 24 million people in the UK, which is just over a third of the UK population. We are the second largest mortgage provider and savings provider in the UK. And £1 in every £8 that is saved in the UK is saved in Nationwide. So to us, the availability of our services, people to access their money, to use their money, to live their lives is critically important.
That's huge. That's huge. And working with your team, we work very closely with your team. So working with your team, I understand you have this multi-layer protection program called Protection of Your Data. Can you tell us a bit about it, what this program is all about, and what are your objectives and outcomes?
Yes, protection of data, or POD as we like to create acronyms for. This is not suggesting we didn't protect our data before, but I think the bad people are getting badder, and the ability, as I mentioned, for us to make sure that our services are online 24/7 by 365 is critically important. Customer expectations of our services is only going one way, and that's upwards. Volumes of data, volumes of engagement in our services are also materially increasing year on year. So our ability to your point earlier, be able to recover quickly but also at scale becomes more and more important as our business develops.
So are you able to address regulatory requirements that you are able to address with this project, or you are proving the compliance to those standards through this program?
I mean, ultimately, having a business that is online and can service its customers, no matter what industry you're in, is kind of the core of the business, really.
Yeah.
But alongside that, we have a very clear regulatory requirement to make sure that we can demonstrate and prove our ability to recover in a whole range of different scenarios, cyber being one of those threats. I think that the whole landscape of threats is changing very, very very fast. I think it was mentioned earlier around historically we may have focused on climate events or kind of geopolitical. Cyber now is probably right at the top of that list. So our ability to, as I say, to prove to ourselves, to prove to our board, to our customers that we can always be there when they need us is the most important thing. Yeah. The useful side effect is then we can also prove to our regulators as well that we are a trustworthy and safe organisation to do business.
And throughout this project, you followed a very thorough approach to select the right partners to work with you and to provide you with the right outcomes that you were looking for.
Yeah.
So the question is, what led you to work with Zerto and HPE to be able to provide you with the objectives that you have?
Yeah, I think my boss would probably say it's slightly too long thinking about that process, but in reality, we had an engagement with HPE. We've kind of bought into GreenLake as a platform, and we're standardizing to a single platform in our own data centers, which is a really important building block. We did look, as you say, at a whole range of different products. And for me, and I think for the team who were involved, it felt like this was a step change. So there are lots of other products on the marketplace that provide very similar capabilities. For us, when we looked at it, Zerto felt like a big leap forward. And in a marketplace and an environment where the threat landscape is changing so quickly, being able to try and leapfrog, at least for a short time, hopefully, kind of gives us that advantage.
Yeah. And product is one part, but how critical was the services part or the documentation part of it? Because we were talking about it, like more than 64% organizations have no recovery plans, proper documented recovery plans. So how important that is for you, and how you are documenting all of that so that in case you are hit, you have the right operational resilience plan in place.
You're absolutely right. The technology in some ways is the easy part. The piece we put a lot of focus on through the program and beyond is firstly articulating what are our really important and critical business services, making sure that the business owners of those services agree and can tell us what they, how those critical components come together. We can then merge that to make sure that the recovery groups are based on not just an individual application, but actually an end-to-end service. So that when we can recover a service, actually we're not, we can get that back up and running really quickly. We can get our business running. We can get our customers operating much quicker, rather than trying to do a very, very piecemeal application by application view, which I think is probably the way we've done things in the past.
Yeah, and that's the comprehensive approach, because we have to resume the business operations. It's not only about data recovery, you have to resume the operations. So that's a comprehensive approach. And now I have the last question, like how's your data protection posture look like after we work together on this project? How it is looking like now?
Look, I think it's much better than it was, but as I said earlier, I think that the real challenge that all of us face is the threat landscape is just changing so quickly that, and I guess what pleases me about the relationship with Zerto and HPE is I think there's a real collaboration there. I know my engineering teams have regular engagements with you and your teams, providing those real world customer feedbacks around what we're seeing, what are our requirements. I don't think they're always unique either. We're probably facing the same challenges as other organizations, but being able to start evolving the product as the threat landscape changes is absolutely critical.
Yeah. Perfect. With that, thank you very much, Paul, for your time today and sharing your experiences with all of our audience today. Thanks a lot, and thanks for the partnership.
Yes,
we are looking forward to work more and more with your team.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers.
So if we have to wrap up this session, and if we have to summarize, these are the key takeaways from this session. Like, if you want to achieve an outcome, which is cyber resilience or IT resilience, go with the complete HPE portfolio, because we are in a unique position in the market where we can serve you not only from the technology perspective, also from the services perspective. And we will keep you away from the multi-vendor lock-in programs, because Zerto was designed to be platform agnostic. It is still platform agnostic. We talked about, Chris talked about VMware and other hypervisors, your migration, your transformation of your IT infrastructure. We can help there. And enhance your cyber resilience capabilities. Ask the question, are you ready in case you are hit? Are you ready? And have you tested the recovery plans that you have in place? When is the last time you tested that? And how much data you have tested? Because in case you are hit, you will be responsible for recovering the data. And imagine, if the business is down, number one objective of CEO is to bring the business back online. And if business is not coming back online because data cannot be recovered, or it is taking a long time to recover, it is a big problem. So while wrapping up this session, by the way, do we have any questions here in the room before we summarize and wrap it up? Any questions, any thoughts? Yeah, please. Yes, the protection, right, perfect, thank you. So the question is, do we also protect virtualized workload as well as bare metal workloads? With Cyber Resilience Vault, yes, we do. We do protect bare metal, we do protect virtualized workloads, and this is what we are doing with Nationwide as well. complete data protection, not just virtual, different platforms. Any other questions? Can you come to the front, please, so that we can make it audible? Thank you.
You mentioned about two zones, the landing zone and the recovery vault zone.
Vault zone, yeah.
The landing zone, is it disaster recovery site? Suppose a customer has a main site, and the landing zone is a DR site, and the vault zone is within the DR site directly connected?
Good question. So landing zone and the vault zone are sitting in the same data center. And there is a reason. If we move vault zone to a different data center, now we have to expose it over a WAN link. We are not doing that. It's a point-to-point or direct connect so that it is not visible on the network. So both landing zone and the vault zone are sitting in the same data center. Now the question becomes is like, what data center you want to deploy this appliance, both zones, production or DR or a third site? The answer to that is a counter question. What data center you want to resume your operations from in case of a cyber attack? Because the first thing that will happen in case you are attacked, your security will cut down all external network connections. If it is sitting in a remote area and you don't have network access, it might be a problem. So the data center you want to resume your operations from, where you have access to the right resources, technology, on-ground boots, that's the data center you want to deploy this appliance in. But we are flexible. We are flexible. It depends on your requirement and the resilience plans that Paul was talking about, documenting everything and having the resources available. Any other questions? All right, then I'll wrap this session up. But before wrapping it up, just want to mention that tomorrow at 9 a.m., we have a storage breakout session. And we are going to announce a lot of things there. So if you are not planning to attend, please make sure to attend this, because we are going to talk about a lot of innovations and new announcements there tomorrow at 9 a.m. And please, whatever we talked about today, whenever you have time, please visit us on the floor for the demo. There is a demo there. So please check us out there on our demo booth. With this, thank you very much for your time today. Thanks a lot.